Annual meeting Sunday. It's not really a holiday, and it's never been something that I think should ever trump any of our great holy days, but it is a great time to reflect. And when people ask me, other clergy ask me, how do I do an annual meeting in less than an hour? Do you give a long rector's report? I tell them I just kind of sneak it in the sermon, right? So the sermon's kind of the way I sneak in a rector's report to take out the time. But it's a good time to reflect. Like one Sunday a year, I love to just reflect with you where we've been, where we're going. And I love to do it on this Sunday, the first Sunday in February, because that's my anniversary Sunday. 6 years ago, today, I started, 6 years ago tomorrow, I started here. 6 years ago, February 5th, 2018. 6 years, Greg, do you believe it? I know, right? So I want to start this by answering a question. I'm going to end this by answering a question. Two of my most frequently asked questions. And one is, so what are you thinking? Right? People kind of ask that. What am I thinking? As my daughter gets older, I want you to know this. St. Albans has been around 103 years. 103 years. We have 15 priests. After 6 years, I am in the middle. But I'm number 8. 7 above me, 7 below me in the time I've served. I want you to know it's my goal. I'm going for the record. I'm going for the record. 2 reasons. 2 reasons why. 3 reasons why. One, the man who holds the record, David Reed is the longest rector, but our first priest at St. Albans, a man named William Everett Johnson, was here 14 years. That's him. It was a hard job. He's only 42 years old in this picture. That's how, it was a different time. But when you say, who's the longest tenured rector at St. Albans, it should look like someone who actually enjoys his job, right? It should. So I don't know in 8 years what I'm going to look like, but I hope it's not that. And I would hope I won't age that much in the next 8 years. So one reason is you deserve a different picture up on the record board than William Everett Johnson. God bless him, though. So I may revisit this, right? Not for a couple years, but as I move up the rankings, I may revisit this list as it goes on. But I'm going for the record. Second reason is I think there's a little providence in that, honestly. Our goal, Sarah and I's goal, has always been that we wanted Rosie to have one stable place where she could go to school, have friends, kind of be her hometown. And if we are here till Rosie graduates high school, right? I'm not saying we won't be, but should we be here till Rosie graduates high school? That would put us at 14 years, 3 months, which would take over William Everett Johnson. So it feels like, there's something happening there, right? Our goals and the parish goals kind of align there. The third is, it's not lost on me how unique what we have here is. I want you to know that, how much I appreciate being your priest, how much I value the kindness that you always show myself and Sarah and Rosie. I have a lot of colleagues, and the bishop puts me in position to talk and mentor clergy around the diocese. And I have a lot of colleagues, and the story I hear is this: I'm always fighting with my parish. I'm always fighting with my parish. That's not my life. That's not our life. Right? What we have here is something unique in the church. We may not realize it because we're here every day, right? But we have kind of a special relationship, and we have a special kind of vibe here, right? That's just the best word I could use. And so there's 99% of that is because we are filled with, this church is filled with great people who are generous, who are kind, who are giving, and who really want the best for St. Albans. And I think that's the main ingredient. So I just want you to know that's not lost on me. There is no greener grass somewhere else, right? I'm in the good old days as we speak. And so I'm aware of that. So just know that's the plan, to go for the record. We have to have a disclaimer, right? God's plans are always better than ours, so sometimes health and life, and it's hard to project 8 years. The Buffalo Bills may win the Super Bowl and need a full-time Episcopal chaplain. I don't know. There's certain things that may come up that may cause me to just pause, right? But as it stands now, that's where our heart is. We're going for the record. Look out, William Everett Johnson. So every year, if you're going to be in a place a while, every year isn't the same. Different seasons require different things. And, certainly going through COVID required a certain type of resilience. Different seasons require different things. And my friend Pat Henderson, who died earlier this year, that I talked about a few times with you from glioblastoma, and he was a great businessman. He was a great leader, and he taught me so much. And every year he would have this practice, and he would pray, and he would think about one word to kind of guide him through a year. What's this year going to require from me? And it would kind of be how he centered his prayer, and his just focus would narrow in around one word. And he was my senior warden for a number of years, and we would do that together, as a practice. What's it going to require from us to lead this church this year? And so I was thinking about him and thinking about all the change that's going on around St. Albans, and thinking this year's word is patience. It is not a fun word. No one ever is like, I'm excited today because I'm going to get patience. Said no one ever, right? Patience is something generally we have when things don't go our way, or we need to express when things don't go our way. But change is just the reality for us this year. Change, we often can't do anything about. Most of you in your life have lived through changes that weren't your choice. They might be health changes, family changes, job changes, all kinds of changes, right? That you didn't choose. You just were affected by them because other people made the choice, or no one at all made the choice. It just happened. But what do we do in the face of change? Right? Just thinking about change kind of puts us in a passive place. Like we have no power. But what can we do in the face of change? We can be patient and persevering. And so as we think about this year coming up at St. Albans, it's going to be a year of change. Right? We think starting from the very top in our diocese, right? We changed one letter, but it was a big change, right? We went from a Bishop David R-E-E-D to Bishop David R-E-A-D, right? And that's a new boss for me and a new bishop for the diocese. That's a change. It's going to take some time and patience to get used to that. He's already said that one of his first goals is to call for the election of a second bishop, our suffragan bishop, the vice president bishop, to put it in common terms. And he would like that person to be called and elected this year. So if you were wondering, what's more fun than getting one new boss in a year? It's getting two new bosses in a year, right? Double the fun of that. It's going to require change and patience. Patience. Just a note, he'll be here before our diocesan council. Bishop David R-E-A-D, David Reed, will be here to make his first visit to St. Albans on February 18th. So he'll be with us in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, he'll be preaching and celebrating here. Those changes are going to require patience. It's going to do things differently than David Reed. We knew David Reed. We love David Reed. David Reed's a big reason why I came in this diocese and accepted this position. We had a relationship with him that is just special because of the years he grew here. It's going to be different not having that. It's going to be a change. We're going to need patience as we get to grow and get to know our new bishop. We have changes at our school, right? We're in the midst of a search right now. Tracy Lamon stepping down at the end of this year, Greg Quisenberry chairing our search committee, and next year we'll have a new head of school. It's going to be a change. It's going to be different. It's going to require patience on all of our parts, getting used to the new things. We have changes in the church side. We've already experienced some of those. Some of the office staff, we've experienced changes. Christy, at the end of last year, moved on to take another position. We hired Myrna, who made a change here at St. Albans to work in the office. We hired a new sexton. Her name is Kylie. I'm pretty sure she's the first employee at St. Albans Church or School to be named Kylie, right? That's kind of a solid Gen Z name. So that's a first, right? Breaking new ground. And, this summer, our parish administrator of 13 years, Nancy Newman, is planning to retire. Right? Those are changes. right? It's going to look different here next year. Doesn't mean it's going to look bad. It just means there's going to be changes, and we're going to need patience as new people learn new things and we build new relationships and settle in to new routines and learn about new gifts and new strengths. It's going to require patience. Now, if change gets you nervous in your life, I get it. It gets me nervous too. I would say of the people here, Tracy and Nanny, as we call her, are probably the people I work the closest with of anybody at St. Albans. And so them leaving is a big change for me, right? And it may not affect you quite as much as it will affect me, but it's a change. And so change can get us anxious, but I want to call to mind a verse from Scripture. It's the one that I put on the front of our bulletin this morning because it's just so helpful for me in the midst of change. It's from Lamentations. Lamentations, maybe the saddest book in the Bible, not the place we normally go to for hope, but surprisingly hopeful. And it's from the prophet Jeremiah, and Jeremiah is writing as he looks at the city he loved and it's burned to the ground. And so Jeremiah lived in Jerusalem. Jerusalem was destroyed by the Babylonians, and Jeremiah was in his 70s at this time. Right? Not a time where he was looking for a new place to live and a new hometown and a new routine. And in his 70s, Jeremiah had told the Israelites for years and years and years if they didn't turn back to God, he wasn't going to stop the Babylonians from going to war with them. And so the Babylonians do, and they eventually just level the city of Jerusalem. The temple Jeremiah worshiped at, the courtyards and the places where the public would gather, the homes people lived, the city is leveled to the ground. And Jeremiah, in the midst of a change he didn't ask for, in the midst of uncertainty and a different type of future, looks over that scene. And he writes this. When he could have wrote so many sad things, he writes, "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness." Now, here's an amazing thing. It's incredible, the faith of Jeremiah, that in the midst of such catastrophic change in his life, he recognizes this truth. The goodness of God doesn't change. Right? His mercies are new every morning, even in the midst of changes in our lives. Even in the midst of giant changes. Our changes are not like Jeremiah's change, but in the midst of our changes, there he is. His goodness doesn't waver. God's goodness to St. Albans won't waver. God's goodness to you in the midst of your changes doesn't waver. They are new every morning, his mercies are. Great is his faithfulness. So no matter what the changes bring, that won't change. God's goodness and his mercies don't waver. His hand is on St. Albans. God loves St. Albans. He loves you. You can tell. Right? I'm not just saying that because I'm trying to get brownie points with you. I'm telling you the truth, because there's a lot of churches in the Episcopal Church that are not doing well. There's a lot of them that are sinking, quite honestly. This is just the truth. We're not. Quite the opposite. We're growing. And that's a sign of God's hand and his goodness on this. God is calling us to be a church that lives, to be a light that shines. Right? His hand is on us. That's not going to change. I want to share two things as we think about signs of God's goodness. There's so many, right? So many ministries, so many great stories and great people. Our pastoral care, our DOK, all our worship ministries and the dedication they show, right? I couldn't list them all. I want to share two that have been special to me because they've been ones we built in the past 6 years. Our youth and our children. I think they're important. No one is in greater risk of being deceived than our young people because of all the things that come at them today. And so our youth and our children's ministry have been special to me. They've been special to this church, and you've supported them so graciously. We have begun kind of adding layers upon layers of what we do. Last year, we started partnering with Camp Capers to try to bring blocks of kids to St. Albans, to Camp Capers. Bennett, Sarah, myself, Miss Stephanie, our children's minister, worked primary A. Now, if you don't know what primary A is, that's a week of third graders, fourth graders, fifth graders. And so we worked that week, and we encouraged kids to make the 4.5-hour drive from Harlingen to Comfort, Texas, which is not easy, right? That's a big ask. And in our week, there were 113 kids there. 18 of them came from Harlingen, right? We had the biggest block. If it was Parliament, we would have had the biggest voting block, right? We had the biggest block of kids at any camp that week was our 18 that we brought from Harlingen, from one church in one session. The amount of joy and enthusiasm that came from that has caused 2 weeks now this year. One is primary, which we're not going to be working, but we have so many of our kids that want to go and experience that. And then we're being bumped up to intermediate, which is the 6th and 7th grade kids, which I'm not exactly sure about, because that's, body odor and hormones start at that age. We're going to see it's going to be a different vibe, right, than the little kids. But we're going to work that week. A team from St. Albans is going to work that week, and we are hoping to do the same for now another age group of kids. This is a fun one. Our first ever junior high trip that's happening this year to our diocesan camp in Duncan Park. Now, this is a fun story. Disclaimer, this story is going to make us sound like heroes, but it's a fun story. I think it just shows kind of the trust that we're building in our program. Last year, Duncan Park, our camp in Colorado, their junior high camp had 4 children that went. So we kind of came up with a creative proposal. Rod Clark at St. John's McAllen, myself, Bennett, we sat down with the camp director and said, if you would let us fly out of the valley, instead of driving to San Antonio, if we could fly out of Harlingen to Denver, we could do better than 4. And they said, sure, we'll try it. Why not? What do they have to lose? So as it currently stands between St. John's and St. Albans, just our 2 churches, we have 16 kids going on that trip. And I appreciate that and the trust you all put in us. And one of our conditions was, I said, Bennett has to go. One, because I didn't want to that week. But the other one was, no, I was busy that week. But the other one was, one of us had to be there. And that was always our condition. If we're asking parents, I say this as a parent of a child who'll be that age in just a few years. If I'm asking parents to trust us to put their children on a plane to maybe go to a place they've never been before and do an experience they've never had, we need to be there with them. That's the least we can do. So they agreed. They agreed because they were desperate, but sometimes that shifts the leverage in the negotiations where it needs to be. So we're flying out of the valley. We have right now 16 kids between St. Albans and St. John's that are going on this trip. There may be more. And it's a fun introduction to the junior high trip to go along with what's been the gold standard for us, the summer mission trip for senior high. And this year we're going back. It's kind of fun now. This is our 4th year. So we're going back to New Orleans, which is where our first trip was, because the food's amazing. The opportunity and the need there is never ending, which is true. And all the kids that were on the first trip are graduated. Right? That's how quick this turns over with youth ministry. So a new group getting new experiences, and we've learned a little from our mistakes last time, so we can make it even better. It'll be a lot of fun. Some people ask this question, why do we go somewhere else when there's so much need here? I get it. Not arguing that point. But part of the magic of the trips is not just the service. It's like the intensive bonding that the kids do, not only with us, but with each other during those trips. It's the moments and the memories that we make along the way, right? And that kind of strengthens the youth group throughout the year. So it's having to go somewhere to serve, but also that week that we basically live together. How we do it is we usually get a house or we stay in a common place and we eat together, we spend time together, we play games together. I mean, we really do see enough of each other for a week that probably when we all get home, we're like, we'll see you in a month, right? It's one of those types of things, but it's the bonding we do that has helped strengthen the youth program. So by the way, Bennett will have more news, but the dinner to support that program is February 28th. And so we'll have a spaghetti dinner here February 28th to help support that trip. I want to say one thing about children's ministry too, because that's a newer area we've invested in. Youth, we've been investing in that about 4 years now. The children, we just really started with bringing on Stephanie in August, and it's made such a difference. It's hard to quantify it, but I want to share one stat with you so that you know. The way we measure things in the Episcopal Church is we have this metric we call average Sunday attendance, and we take the Sundays. The ushers do a count. They give it to me up at communion. Say this many people are here. This many people fell asleep during your sermon. This many people stayed. Right? It's a little sheet that they give us. But the reason why we have that is that's what the church requires us to kind of measure how we're doing. Right? So we take those numbers of say every week for a month. And then we average it out by 4 Sundays. This is our average attendance for the month of May, the month of February. All right, last December 2023, how did it compare to 2022? Well, December 2022, Advent and Christmas, the same amount of Sundays, same amount of time. Our average Sunday attendance for December 2022 was 182, which means on an average Sunday, there's 182 people here in December. December 2023, our average Sunday attendance was 266, right? That's a 1-year jump, and the biggest reason for that jump is people under the age of 10 and their families, right? Huge difference in that. I mean, that's just such a difference that Stephanie and our children's ministry is making already. I mean, there's lots of growth and growing pains ahead, but I just want you to know how much of a difference that's making. And I'm proud of those two ministries. I'm proud that you're willing to invest in those ministries where a lot of other churches aren't. Right? A lot of other churches may say, no, we don't want to pay for a children's minister. We don't want to pay for a youth minister. Those are investments. Those are resources that we're using there that we're not using elsewhere. But to me, it's worth it. It's so worth it. And I'd love to be known as the church in Harlingen that invests heavily in children and youth. Right? If nothing else, when you have the gray-haired picture of me on the wall, after I break the record, you could say during his time, we invested more in children and youth than any other church in Harlingen. I would love for that to be what we're remembered for during this time. So let me close then with the second question I get asked, the second frequently asked question. Well, what does that mean for a second priest? Are you ever going to get any help? First of all, it's y'all make it easy. Y'all are not a hard, demanding congregation, but there are times, right, when the clergy shortage that the diocese is in and the wider church is in affects us. There are times when I've been gone and you've had to have morning prayer, and I appreciate your patience in that. That requires patience. The church is still in a clergy shortage, and that creates all kinds of issues, right? It means that there's more demand for people coming out of seminary, the ministry that we've traditionally had, hiring what we call a curate. That's a brand new priest, and training them here for 2 to 3 years, partnering with the diocese on that. We've had a shortage of those. So this year, the bishop told me 50% of the churches that need one got one, right? And 50% lost out. So shortages create more leverage for the clergy, which isn't a bad thing, right? It isn't a bad thing. But it means, clergy coming out of seminary have all these compelling reasons why they need to be in San Antonio if there's a number of churches in that area that need a curate, right? Family, health, doctors, all the reasons that a 28-year-old would need to be in San Antonio. And so that's a challenge for churches in the valley. It just is real, right? Before we have this many churches, we have this many people, we place them. And now we have 50% more churches than people in needing clergy, so they kind of get to pick their shot. And this is a reality. You know where the valley sits when they get to pick. So it's a challenge for us. I've talked to the bishop about next year. I would like to be at the top of the list. He's agreed that we should be. Notice how we should be. It doesn't mean we will be, right? He's agreed that we should be. And so we'll see. But that means this year is going to take some patience. The vestry's been very good about saying you're not missing vacation. You're not going to burn out. right? So we can live with morning prayer for a week or two if we can't find coverage. And so I appreciate your patience in that. We're still working towards that. We'll see. You pray to that end, and maybe the doors will open for the right person. But whatever it is, right? Whatever changes are in front of us, whatever changes are down the road, whatever things that we want to happen now, maybe that aren't going to happen now, all of it's going to require patience. We can understand the wisdom of St. Paul as he talks about the fruits of the Spirit, and one of them being patience. You know, God is never rushed by us. We're usually rushed, but God is kind of always working at his own pace. And I trust him. I trust him for me, for my family. I trust him for this church. For the changes that we're going through, I trust his goodness. It's not going to change. It's not going to fail. But we're going to need patience. And so I thank you for the patience that you've had with me, your priest, over these past 6 years. We'll need some more. We'll need a little more patience coming up. But keep praying as we continue to invest in children and youth, as we continue to move forward amidst all the changes in the community, that God give us the patience we need to learn, to get to learn new people doing new things. And next year, on year 7, we'll be able to reflect on how patient we were. In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.